Welcome to Shardlight Radio, the Argent Saga podcast, featuring interviews, card reviews, deck analysis, and much more. Shardlight Radio is your source to everything happening in the world of Argos.
And we're back on Shardlight Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Ben, and on today's episode, I want to talk about the Argent Saga Championship Vegas that took place over the last weekend. We did not get as much information about this event in a variety of ways. There was a post made to the official Argent Saga group breaking down the champions that showed up, but we did not get that same information for spirits. We didn't get the information about the most played cards, things that we've I have grown accustomed to referencing and looking at that come out during or immediately after these championships. Didn't get any of that information. So going off just champions, Liam was 38% of the field, with other taking up the next largest chunk of the pie at 23%. So other has got to consist of Jillian, Ariana, Aragon. I'm not sure who all falls into other. Presumably there were some of the champions that didn't see play, but we just don't have that information. Jamail was the second largest represented single champion with 18% of the field, and then Hoenna, Rain, and Dragonhole each represented 7%. So there's a lot of champions that are in that other category. I would have liked to see that broken down somewhere. Out of the top 8, however, we ended up with a significant representation of Jamail. So within the top 8, there were 2 Liams, 1 Rain, I believe 1 Aragon, and 4 Jamails, which is a pretty significant representation given that they were less represented in the total field. Now, I do think that Jamail has shaped up to be a dominant champion in this meta. Things like Mara the Witch just give a little bit more gas to getting things to the board, as well as just maintaining hand advantage throughout the entire game. These Liam decks are very aggressive. It is crazy how the meta seems to have kind of bifurcated, where you've got these tricky control-y decks, such as the Rain deck that was piloted by friend of the show, Jonathan Ball, that really focuses on lots and lots of triggers within a single turn and playing this kind of longer control-y game and finding his way to the top 8 with that same kind of, it's like both evasive and aggressive kind of. Like, he's got the Repro Blooms in here, of course, so there is that ability to push aggressively, but there's also a lot of things that allow you to control the other side of the table with destruction effects and the Blazewalkers. Kind of maybe creating a little cognitive dissonance for me to think of a control deck that has an aggressive bend. Like, control is always this longer game strategy, but that is really not the way this shaped up. So even the control-y-ish decks like Rain have this super aggressive kind of core pushing things forward. The Liam decks, man, Liam, Repro Bloom, when this meta fades, I will not complain at all. So a couple of interesting things about some of the decks that we saw at Las Vegas. Del Peck, it's a fella I remember from the Versus community. He has a Liam Corona deck that has 9 Argent Shards and just Corona the Spirit Ruby, which is a little bit funny. Now, admittedly, the Wavering Crystals don't do a whole lot given the rest of his overall deck list, but it's like, really? We're at that point already where some of the crystals are becoming obsolete. The difference between the best crystal, the Zephyr crystal, and the worst crystals is really significant. Like, overall, that cycle of crystal cards was not super well balanced between the elements. This was yet another representation. Like, even though the Conviction expansion has reached the meta at this point, and those cards were available and did make an appearance in some of these decks, this is very similar to what we've seen at some of the previous events, where you've got very aggressive Liam decks looking to abuse Repro Bloom. You've got spam decks with Jamail and the Elephant looking to kind of control the board while also maintaining this large pressure. And that largely rounds out the meta. Now, we did see Aragon make the top 8 with Tux, the new Spirit. Man, I can't wait to get my hands on Tux. That seems like an extremely good card. So you're not entirely limited to one of those two options, either going board spam that's focused mainly on Repro-Bloom or board spam that's focused on Mara and spamming out witches, but that does seem to be the strategies that the players that are having the most success seem to be looking at. Spoilers for the next expansion started today. I'm very excited to get some more cards into the meta, and particularly to see some more champions and spirits. I do not like that there are only 2 elements that have more than one spirit. While I am Team Water all the way, and I do really like Tux, I would have preferred to see Tux alongside a few more spirits. Now, I know we're going to get a set of new starter decks soon, which will include presumably 1 champion and 1 spirit, but then we're going to have some elements that have 3 spirits to choose from and some that only have 2. I would like to see a little bit more, I guess, balance across the colors there, where there's more options, particularly a color like Fire, where Corona is so focused on one specific strategy. If you're wanting to splash red into your deck and you're not going with an aggressive strategy, then you almost have a blank spirit. You have a Corona Spirit Ruby activator and nothing else, and that's a little unfortunate. I would like to see a Fire Spirit that would bring a little bit more variety to what you can do with splashing fire into your deck, particularly now that we've got some better fire cards other than like just GZ. So there are still some areas where I'd like to see the game grow, and I definitely feel like the meta, we've seen this. The expansion pack Conviction did not bring enough new stuff to the table, that we're essentially having our 3rd Argent Saga Championship in a row with basically the same meta, and I'm ready for a shakeup. Congratulations to the people who made top 8 and Philip for winning the event, of course, but I am ready as a spectator to see some matches. It's unfortunate that only part of this event was streamed in kind of a bespoke way. I'd like to see a polished stream for future events, and I understand that can't happen every time, but I appreciate it when it does, and I enjoy being able to watch it, and I would definitely like to see some new cards and some new strategies hitting the table. Till next time, go win some games. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Shardlight Radio. Remember to follow us on Facebook. If you like the show and want to support what we're doing, join us at patreon.com/thebuildphase to find out how. Special thanks to Ben Rueg for our fantastic new theme music, and until next time, go win some games.